coming into this workshop. So this is the Introduction to Social Accounting. My name's Karen, I'm one of the directors at SAM. I've been a director for about a year, so if you guys are relatively new to social accounting, you're in good company, because I'm quite new to it too. But lots over the last few years. I think it's a great approach. So today I just want to share with you some of the basic principles of social accounting and sort of process we go through. We've got Matthew who's going to share some insight into how do we make this happen practically. He's, as he said before, 13 years of experience of doing social accounts within his organisation. So he's kindly agreed just to share some of his experience. And then we'll just take a look at how do we get started on this thing. Because I know a lot of you, if you're anything like me, you go away from the conference today and people go away from the training that we deliver full of enthusiasm and good intentions, but how do you actually get started? But I'd just like to start off by getting to know you, and if you could just share one fact about social accounting, something, maybe something you learned this morning, something you already knew, just a short sentence about social accounting, and just obviously tell us your name and the organisation that you're from. Who'd like to start? Don't want to do creeping down necessarily. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, me. So one thing I've learned, it can be about little things, it doesn't have to be big things.
Yes. Yeah, start small, start where it matters to you. Right.
My name is Priya, I work for Diabetes UK, and one thing I know about social accounting is that I've always wanted to learn about it. and you know, I think destiny has favored me because I was doing some bits, I've done PIA and then had to lose touch for some time for various other reasons, and then I met Dave and destiny got me closer to it again. So I think I'm destined to pursue it at the next level.
Fantastic. You're in the right place.
I nearly fell off my chair when she told me. To actually find somebody in the south doing it.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of us from the north and Scotland, isn't there? Yeah.
And having been trained in India.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
By Alan.
That was a few years ago, so then I couldn't pursue because of I had my second child and then career and then moved to London and then somehow lost touch, and then probably destiny got me closer.
Oh, destined to be here, that makes me really happy. Brilliant, thank you. Should we go along?
Okay, so I'm Liz Guttridge. I work for Chest Homeless in Chelmsford, so we work with the homeless. In terms of social accounting, I think interestingly the stakeholders and their views, they've got a wide range of stakeholders in various positions. Their views are always interesting.
Yeah.
That's Jackie Hodgson, I'm a trustee at Motherwell, Cheshire. I don't really know much about social accounting, but I don't feel daunted. I say that.
Good.
I think we're actually doing quite a bit of gathering, and it's just looking now at questioning what we're doing.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Martinson, I'm a volunteer with a couple of charities at the moment, wanting to know more about social accounting. I think in terms of what I've learnt is that it can be quite difficult to put numbers to aspects of social accounting, and finding an effective way of evaluating other aspects of output it can be quite challenging.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Louise, a social researcher at the WEA, and one thing I found out today is how much information social accounting can provide to sort of demonstrate like decision making moving forward.
Yeah.
And improving situations in society. So, yeah.
Great intelligence for your organisation, isn't it?
Yeah.
People know what WEA is.
Oh, sorry. It's an adult education provider, founded in 1903, so we've been going quite a long time, and it's aimed at sort of disadvantaged adults post-19, provides adult education courses in health and wellbeing, community engagement, employability, culture education, and we're a national organisation. I'm based in the Birmingham office in West Midlands, but do cover research for the whole association. education. But yeah.
More people should know about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people don't know enough about the WEA, so yeah, we're really interested in memberships.
Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you.
No, it's okay.
I want everybody to know.
Matthew.
Well, I think from today so far I've learned, if I ever doubted it, we're more relevant than ever. Social accounting is more relevant than ever.
Thank you.
Emily Timlin, I work at the Woodland Trust, and the one thing I've learned today is probably that I already know a lot more about social accounting than I thought I did, and I use it a lot in my job already.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm Sarah Brown, and I'm from the Woodland Trust as well. And I think the thing that really struck me this morning is that social accounting is about capturing the difference that it makes for people. One of the things that I'm going to do when I go back to work tomorrow is try and work and think about the questions that we're asking people and what the questions we're asking so that we make sure we get the right information back to capture that.
Yeah.
I deliberately didn't steal your line.
Oh, thank you.
I thought you might say what you said to me just when we were stood through there about.
Oh, about fluff?
Yes.
Oh. The other thing that I learned from what Liz was saying is that I think people refer to social accounting as fluff, but actually I think the fluff is the quality, and it's not it's not the fluffy stuff, it's actually the difference that you've made for people. So I think you can respond to them and say, well, actually our fluff is the quality, and that is maybe the difference between yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Liz, spoke to everybody earlier, and I'm going to echo what Matthew said. The time is now, really is. Money's tight for everybody. We need to prove our worth.
Donna, I'm the partnership manager at SAA, organisation as Liz. I think I've kind of been picking up on people's comments, and unfortunately we don't have a crystal ball, and because if we did, this would make this job a lot easier. If we had a crystal ball and we knew what impacts a project was going to have, for example, or an organisation was going to have, then we could set the processes in place before we start. The problem is, and I'm thinking particularly of my project, you have expected impacts, then it doesn't turn out to be like that. It turns out to be much bigger and much different. But by the time you're running at 100 miles an hour, then putting in place those processes becomes a sort of second priority. So, you've missed the boat almost sometimes. I suppose it's about grabbing that quickly and actually, let's put something in place to collect this. You can put processes in place at the start if you know what you're collecting.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's very difficult to grab that moment to do it. So, before we start on phase 2 of our project in April, my plan now after today is to put in place different or newer processes to capture different things that we've been collecting so far, because we've missed a lot of stuff.
Thank you. I work for Community Enterprise. We're an organisation that provides support to charities and social enterprises across Scotland. One thing I know and interests me about social audit is that it's maybe say a peer-led approach. It was developed by the organisations that use it, and it provides a lot of opportunities for people to get involved in collaborating with organisations working in a similar field and learn from one another.
Thank you. Thanks for that, everybody. Hopefully we'll pick up on some of those threads that you've shared already. So, social accounting audit it's a logical and it's a really flexible framework, and that's one of the things that I think drew me into social accounting. Is it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's something that can be adapted and shifted and made relevant to your own organisation. It's about proving, accounting for, fully reporting on your organisational, social, environmental and economic performance and impact. It's that triple bottom line. It's about improving, using the information that you've obtained to plan future actions and improve all the time, and it's that continual cycle. And it's about being accountable to those that you work with and those that you work for, so your stakeholders.
Can I just ask you, will we get a copy of the slides?
Yeah, I'm sure we can. Yeah, I'm sure we'll arrange that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And a lot of the information that's in here is contained within the guide as well, which we've got copies of. For you to take away. So the principles of social accounting and audit. These are the principles that have guided the development of social accounting over the last 20 years and more. And these are key really to underpinning the process. So it's around clarifying purpose. So what is the purpose of your organisation? What's your vision, your mission, the values that guide you, and how do these inform the activities that you do, the objectives that you hold as an organisation? It's about defining the scope. So social accounting doesn't have to straight away look at the whole of your organisation. You might want to segment it, you might want to look at different levels, but it's being clear about what's within the scope of your social accounts. Absolutely key is the engagement of stakeholders, and we've got a colleague Lynn who's running a workshop around stakeholder engagement if anyone's particularly interested in some great ways of engaging stakeholders and doing that in a meaningful way. But stakeholders inform the whole social accounting process, and that relationship with them is absolutely fundamental. Determining materiality, so this is around what's material, what do you need to report on in order to demonstrate the impact that you're having as an organisation. Making comparisons, whether that's internally year on year against yourself, or whether that's benchmarking against other organisations, or looking at different standards across the sector. Being transparent, so once you've produced your social accounts, who will you report those to, who will be able to see those, being very open and clear about what you've got contained within those accounts. Verification, so this is around the audit bit really. How can you prove that impact that you have and verify the accounts? And obviously through the Social Audit Network we had a team of auditors who were able to do that for you and with you. And then embedding the process, so how does that, this is the improve bit really, how do you use that information that you've obtained in order to improve your business as you go forwards. Step one, I was thinking about what's the difference we want to make, which is what Sarah mentioned before really. This is about you and your organisation. It's not being beholden to funders or external stakeholders necessarily, but it's about you and what difference that you want to make within your organisation. So it's thinking about your vision, your mission, your values, objectives, and the key aspects checklist is sort of an internal checklist of your own governance that kind of helps you to think about how you can be accountable to yourselves. Thinking about your stakeholders and who of those are kind of key stakeholders who is absolutely essential that you engage with. And yeah, who are those who you might want to engage with at a sort of lesser extent. Moving on to step two, is how do we know we're making a difference? So if that's our vision, our mission, the different activities you do, how do we know that the things that we do actually make a difference to the people out there, to our beneficiaries? So this is about the indicators that you put in place, the ways that you're going to measure the difference that you make. What are some of the outputs and the outcomes, the sort of quantitative and qualitative outputs that you have. It's actually carrying out that stakeholder consultation, confirming the scope and sort of checking back and thinking, are we looking at the right things here? And then implementing a plan for your social accounting plan. Moving on to step three, sort of thinking now about what is the difference we're making. And this is collating all your data together, analysing it, it's looking at those. And Liz, you said you love spreadsheets. This is my downfall as a social accountant. Spreadsheets make my skin crawl, but I'm having to learn. But yeah, this is where you're getting your data, which not just spreadsheets, obviously, your stories, all the information that you've gathered, and kind of breaking all that down, compiling it into your draft social accounts. And these can be at quite a basic level, they don't need to be completely full and well-rounded with every box ticked, especially when you're first starting out. Start where it matters to you. And we break down in the guide into basic or advanced level social accounts that gives you an idea of what you need to do, what areas you need to cover. And then step four is going to audit. There's different options around the panel. You can self-verify first if that's what you choose to do, or you can get the support of an audit panel, and it's not a scary process. It's a very supportive, nurturing environment that enables you to learn from the process that you've been through and helps you to learn going forwards. And I just wanted to kind of flag up the checks that go all through this process. So I think this resonated with me when we were talking about the outcomes and how, if you're identifying outcomes at the beginning, how do you know as you go through the project whether those are the right outcomes? And I think it's just always being aware that social accounting allows you to do those checks and encourages you to do those checks as you go along, making sure that you're on the right track and you flexing and adapting as you go through the process. Okay. And this is quite a nice structure really of how the social accounting and audit cycle can work, because this can run alongside your business planning cycle in the same way as your financial accounts, you start to prepare them throughout the year. The social accounts are the same, so you might start with agreeing your mission and your objectives and activities. If you've already got those in place, it's sort of reviewing them, making sure they're still relevant, going through this whole sort of field of social accounting, if you like, throughout the year until you're ready to be preparing your social accounts, getting them verified, feeding back with stakeholders, and then by the end of the year you're getting ready to think about what do we want to do for the next sort of cycle of the social accounting year, if you like. So it can be a year-on-year process, and I think it's just really useful to see it broken down in that way. So I'll just whiz through this next few slides. These are just about I think Matthew's already touched beautifully on some of them, so I'm not going to labour the point. And then we've got just a little exercise which we can at least get you started on, and then because it's something to think about really as you go away. So in terms of getting started, I just wanted to keep this really practical so you can go away thinking, right, I kind of know where at least I'm going to begin this journey. So decide who will lead the work, who's going to have a minor role, who you sort of just need to get buy-in from, and who just needs to be kept informed. And decide if there's any additional training you need. Obviously there's been a real whistle-stop of overview this afternoon, but we run PIA, Prove Improve Account, training sessions there, 2-day sessions that take you through the whole process, lots of practical examples that you should come away from that, hopefully feeling like this feels manageable and something you can go away and do. We can share details of when the next ones are coming up in the UK. And think about what other resources you're going to need and when you're going to need them. Critically, I think it's about building on what you already do. I think we've already touched on this as well, but it's just, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. I'm sure you've got lots of you will have lots of data and things that you've already collected that you can build on. And if you do that, then it becomes much easier to embed it in practice. It's much more likely to become embedded, much more likely to happen. It's about the organisation and not just a single project, because you're building it into the sort of the integral workings of your organisation, and it becomes linked to your business plan. You have that control. You're not driven by what your funders are asking for. It's much easier that way. Less likely to get out of control and become unwieldy and something that you feel like you can't face. In terms of a few top tips to leave you with, as I said, use what you already have in place, don't invent anything new. Think about whether you need that steering group, as Matthew described. Who's the kind of team of people you're going to bring around you to support you with this? We always recommend that it becomes part of somebody's job and it's not just an add-on that lands on someone's desk, because that's your job for the next 12 months as well as everything else you've got to do. Because we all know what that feels like when that happens. And think about who else can help that's maybe not directly employed by your organisation. There might be volunteers that you have, or maybe students from local universities who might want to help with some of the research, or other local experts that you can bring in to support. And I'd add to that other organisations that you know of, and this is where the regional networks that we talked about this morning come into their own really. If there's someone in your region who has been through this process and might be willing to kind of offer a bit of a mentoring type role, I think that's really, really helpful. So thought, just to give you a little bit of time, we've literally got minutes for this, so I'm sorry it's a bit rushed, but we have, I think Anne's going to use this form as well, so you're welcome to take these, but this is a form that you can kind of look through and think about what do we already have within our organisation that we can use, that we're already doing to get us started. So it was just, I'll hand these around in a moment. Have a think about what you already have in place that contribute to establishing social accounting within your organisation, and what else might you need to create the right climate within the place you work. So if you don't get a chance to discuss those too much today, at least maybe go away and it's a place for you to get started and have a think.